Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever thought about who Harry Potter's father really was? What if I told you he wasn't the perfect hero many imagine him to be? In today's video, you will find out the shocking truth about James Potter. For Harry, his parents were always a shining ideal, almost like angels in human form. And it makes sense. A boy who lost his family as a baby would naturally idealize them, especially growing up in a home where he was unloved and mistreated by the Dursleys. But what happens if we step away from childhood admiration and look at James Potter objectively? His mother, Lily, was kind-hearted and selfless, but James, he was far from a saint.
Why do I say this? Let me prove it to you.
James Potter was born into a wealthy, respected wizarding family. Unlike the Malfoys or the Blacks, the Potters weren't obsessed with blood purity, but they still valued their lineage. James, however, broke tradition by marrying Lily, a Muggle-born witch, something his ancestors never did. At Hogwarts, James became a Gryffindor, excelling in Quidditch and surrounding himself with a close-knit group of friends, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew. He was popular, talented, and full of confidence. He passed his exams effortlessly, relying more on natural ability than hard work. After Hogwarts, he and his friends joined the Order of the Phoenix, fighting against Voldemort. He faced the Dark Lord multiple times, always escaping with his life, until the fateful night when Voldemort came for his son. That night, James was the first to fall. But was he really the noble hero everyone remembers? The truth is, James Potter had flaws that cannot be ignored. He was a troublemaker. At school, James and his friends were notorious pranksters. They caused mischief, spied on classmates, and pulled stunts that often went too far. Even Lily found him arrogant and immature at first. He was arrogant. James took pride in his skills and pure-blood heritage. He never had to struggle for anything, and he wasn't shy about reminding others of that. He even mocked Vernon Dursley, Lily's sister's husband, for his Muggle interests. He bullied Severus Snape. And here's the biggest stain on his legacy, the relentless bullying of Severus. James humiliated him in front of the entire school, knowing full well that Severus was deeply in love with Lily. James Potter was not just an ordinary prankster. His actions went beyond harmless jokes. He saw himself as the king of Hogwarts, a young wizard who could do whatever he pleased without consequences. His charisma and natural talent made him popular, but beneath the charming exterior was a boy who enjoyed showing off, especially at the expense of others. One of his favorite targets was Severus Snape. It wasn't just a one-time joke or a school rivalry. James made it a habit to humiliate Severus, to remind him every day that he was beneath him. He and Sirius would hex Snape in the middle of the hallway, dangle him upside down in front of everyone, and mock his appearance, his interests, even his love for Lily. To them, it was entertainment. But to Severus, it was a nightmare he couldn't escape. Lily Evans, the only person who ever showed Severus kindness, tried to intervene. She scolded James, telling him to stop, calling him arrogant and cruel. But James didn't listen. In fact, he saw it as a challenge. He thought that by proving himself as a powerful and confident wizard, he could win Lily's heart. But what kind of love is built on cruelty? He tormented the person she considered a friend just to impress her. Many argue that James changed, that he grew up and became a better man. Maybe he did. He fought against Voldemort, he married Lily, he had a son. But does a few years of being a husband and father erase the years of bullying and arrogance? Even as an adult, traces of his superiority remained. He mocked Vernon Dursley for being a Muggle, belittling him in front of Lily. He saw non-magical people as strange, even ridiculous, laughing at their way of life. And while he loved Lily, There was always a sense that he saw himself as the one who had saved her from being just another Muggle-born witch. His death turned him into a legend, a young man who died protecting his family, a hero who stood up to the Dark Lord without a wand. But what if he had lived? Would people still see him as flawless? Would they still admire him without the tragic ending that sealed his reputation? Sirius Black, his best friend, idolized him. But Sirius himself was reckless, impulsive, and carried the same arrogance. When you look at the Marauders, James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter, it's clear that James was always the leader, the one others followed. He set the tone. If James wanted to prank someone, the others went along with it. If James decided Snape was the enemy, no one questioned it. That kind of influence is dangerous. And yet, despite all of this, people forgive James because he was charming, because he had a bright smile, because he fought for the right side. But should we forget the harm he caused simply because he died young? The truth about James Potter is uncomfortable. He was not a perfect man, nor was he the noble figure Harry imagined. He was brave, but he was also cruel. He was talented, but he was also entitled. He was a loving husband, but he was also a bully. If he had survived, would he have changed? Or would he have continued to see himself as someone above others, someone destined for greatness, without having to prove he deserved it? Harry grew up without knowing his father's flaws. He learned about James through the memories of those who loved him, through Dumbledore's careful words, through the admiration of old friends. But when he saw Snape's memories, when he witnessed firsthand how James treated others, it shook him. The father he had idolized was not the man he thought he was. James Potter was many things, a warrior, a leader, a friend, but a good man, that is for you to decide.